Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Myrna Molina. I'd like to call today's Judicial and Public Safety Committee meeting to order. It is Thursday, June 15th. May I please have roll call?
Gums,
Gums remote.
Linder,
Linder here.
Roth,
Roth here.
Tepe,
Tepe here.
Williams,
Williams here remote on my way. Sorry, I'm going to be late.
Leonard, Molina.
Molina present.
You have a quorum in the room.
Okay, we have a quorum in the room. Is without any objection. I'd like to have Ms. Gums and Mr. Williams available for voting. Any objection? Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for May 11th, 2023.
Madam Chair, I request a unanimous consent to approve the minutes.
Any objection?
No.
Okay, minutes have been approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment. We have one speaker signed up to speak, Mr. Pullman, and you're speaking on agenda, so you are given 5 minutes.
Let's see. Speaker working, okay.
Welcome.
My name is Mel Pullman. I live in Blackberry Township, have been there about 10 years. This is my third time to come to talk to the committee about off-road motor vehicle noise. This morning, I want to try to make this. I'm sorry. This morning, I want to try to make this somewhat of a personal situation. If you could think back to a time when you hosted a family get together or a friends get together in your backyard. You know, it's going to be a special time. You're going to have a birthday or an anniversary celebration, or maybe it was Memorial Day to celebrate the beginning of summer. Anyway, your family has worked really hard with this situation. You've cleaned, you've organized, you've gone shopping. You know, the excitement's starting to build. Anyway, that big day has come and cars are arriving in your driveway and people are starting to arrive. I want to show you a video clip right now. Anyway, this chaos went on all Memorial Day, early in the morning until after dinner time. Dirt, fumes, dust, loud noise impacted the 23 homes that border this 15-acre lot. In December, we submitted a petition with 87 signatures from homeowners in the Willow Creek subdivision and Nottingham Woods, asking for the board to address this issue. It's been 9 long months since we've been dealing with this problem. We need your help. This morning, we're looking forward to the discussion on the noise ordinance. We do have some concerns about the exceptions, and we want your support to move forward with this problem. It's an issue. We need your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, no one else has signed up for public comment, so we will move on. Our monthly reports are on file. Do we have anybody here from the Merit Commission? Okay, our Merit Commission report is on file. We will move on the agenda to our KingCom. Ms. Guthrie, good morning.
Good morning. Our monthly reports are on file. As you can see, in May, we did have pretty large increase in activity, both in calls for service and also in our phone call statistics. Our focus remains on hiring. I am disappointed to report that we have lost another telecommunicator. She's actually going to another agency. Her last day was yesterday. And I also want to recognize, because she was the telecommunicator that handled the events on May 24th involving the Sheriff's Office K-9. And she did a fantastic job. I know the incident is still under investigation, but just from the KCOM standpoint, we talk about the stress as it relates to 911 calls and what you hear on the other end of the phone, but there is a very real, if not increased stress when it comes to, the radio traffic with our first responders for police and fire, because these are your coworkers that you work with every day. So she, an acknowledgement of our team, they handled it very, very well. We wish Emily the best as she moves on to a new communication center. And we continue to do everything we can to recruit and train new telecommunicators. So on that, I do have a couple slides to talk about some space. I brought this to admin committee yesterday. Admin committee approved it. We are moving forward with the build out of our office and our quiet room, just to show where we currently are right now. And I'll shorten this a little. I know some of the same board members were at the meeting yesterday. So if you look at that first office there, that's the current setup. That's our operations manager and our deputy director in a very cozy space in which they've been in for the last year. Then with the renovations that we did in November of 2021, we have freed up kind of a larger space back by the two offices. So right now we have our 3 management positions, in addition to our radio administrator, who, as you know, was under the stairs in the yellow house. And then we will be building an office back here for the operations manager. So then we will have 3 offices in that space. In addition, Blair, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Our employees don't really have a private break space, right? So they don't really have a space where during long shifts, they can, close the door and FaceTime with their family or take phone calls. So we are going to wall off where you see that recliner there. We're going to remove the lockers and build them a quiet room. And we will look at like a recliner in there and pool the employees for what they would like to see in that space, but at least that would allow them a private space during their breaks. So thank you to the committee for approving that. We're going to be getting funding that will be reimbursed to pay for it. And we are excited to get that project started. However, I'm bringing this up today because this doesn't solve all of our spatial needs. So we have a training space that we use in a scenario type based classroom setting when we train new employees. And right now we're trying to determine where we can reserve that space for 3 weeks. So we have 4 people in that room. So we'll be problem solving that, but it's just an ongoing conversation. And I'm always open to suggestions that anybody has to increase our space over in our 911 center. Let's see what else. On that, I think I just have the one resolution. If you would like me to present that.
If you want to go ahead and introduce it and then we'll motion.
Sure. So this is for the ETSB, the Emergency Systems Board Chairman, to enter into an agreement to authorize the expenditures of funds for a 911 radio communication study.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve?
Rothwell, motion.
Mr. Roth moves, Mr. Linder seconds. Okay, any comments or questions?
Yes, may I? Yes, thank you. So on this, we are working, our emergency systems telephone board encompasses both KCOM and TRICOM. And we are going to be looking at, we still maintain our VHF system. That's what our fire users, our fire subscribers use. And we're going to be looking at what's the infrastructure that TRICOM has, what is the infrastructure that KCOM has, and what makes the most sense from a cost saving standpoint on where we can share resources. We're also redundant, both centers back each other up. And then we will be looking at future plans to make sure we're very forward facing, cost savings and redundancy. So that's what this study will identify.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, may I please have roll call?
Madam Chair Gums.
Ms. Gums, go ahead.
I just have one quick question for you, Michelle. In the study, I did read the whole packet. It was extremely long, by the way. Thank you. When we're looking at the the consolidation language in there, has that been discussed at all? I mean, is that something that we're specifically targeting?
No, that's not something we're specifically targeting with this study. What we are specifically targeting is, as I stated, more consolidation in terms of redundancy where, well, I guess where it makes sense to consolidate our infrastructure resources.
Very good.
Not the operations of 2 911 centers, just related to the radio.
Thank you for answering that.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tuppy?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. How is this going to be funded?
Yes, this is going to be funded through our Emergency Systems Telephone Board, the ETSB, but this is kind of just another measure. When we went out to RFP, we do use the county's purchasing department for the ETSB. So we passed a resolution at the ETSB, and then we are also passing this resolution for the chairman to enter through the agreement through the county procedure as well.
Typically, when it says that it's going to be paid for out of other funds, on the form, it says when is item budget, it says not applicable. This one says no. So this is being paid out of county funds, or we're going to be reimbursed?
Yes, if it's paid out of county funds, then it will be reimbursed by the ETSB.
Good, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Similar to the build-up project that we have for admin as well, it would come from county funds and then be reimbursed by the ETSB.
Okay, good questions. Anybody else? Okay, may I please have roll call?
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Tepe,
Except yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
passes.
Okay, and this passes on to our Finance and Budget Committee.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Anything else for us, Ms. Guthrie?
No, that's it.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Okay, we will move on to our Sheriff and Adult Corrections. Under Sheriff Johnson, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Obviously, the sheriff is not here, so I'm taking his place. I know Bill's not here. He'd be super proud that finally I'm speaking. So just for the record, again, for that. So our monthly report is on file, and we just have one resolution to kind of move forward on, and I can introduce that.
Can
It's
you
the
get
author-
closer to the mic, please?
I'm tiny, I'm tiny.
I understand. You can move the mic closer.
I know,
Yell.
and that's what I don't want to overpower. Okay, so give me a break. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So our resolution that I'm introducing is the authorization of an IGA or intergovernmental agreement between DuPage County, Illinois and the Kane County, Illinois for reciprocal housing of detainees. If we remember Kendall County, we actually did the same thing with the IGA. We're piggybacking off of that just in case we need reciprocal housing per DuPage.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve this resolution?
Roth will motion.
Mr. Roth moves.
Linder, second.
Mr. Linder seconds. Okay, any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, may I please have roll call?
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Tepe,
Except yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
passes.
Okay, and this also moves on to our Finance and Budget Committee later on. Anything else for us under Sheriff? Okay, any comments or questions for our Sheriff's Department? Okay, we will move on to Emergency Management.
Good morning, John Menching with Emergency Management. Our report's on file. I think the only things that I really like to hit on today is the amount of work that we've been doing with the ad hoc security committee. We've completed the security assessment of all the buildings on the campus with the sheriff's office. So we're ready to report on that, I believe. And also the work with the Geneva Fire Marshal and facilities looking at completing the fire inspection for this building. They're ready to move on to the rest of the buildings on campus here shortly. So that work is still moving forward as well. But that's all I have for today.
Okay, any comments or questions regarding OEM report? Okay, we will move
Just
on to our
one-
State's Attorney. Oh, sorry, Ms. Gums, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm late with the raising the hand thing. I just want to say thank you for that information. We'll schedule that meeting. Thanks, Mr. Menching.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Masser.
Thank you. Our monthly reports are on file. Much like our telecommunicators, we are busy trying to hire. We have open spots pretty much everywhere within the office. We do a lot of interviews on a monthly basis. We're still struggling, as I have said, for many, many months now because of the low pay and our inability to be competitive. We continue to work on that, but I'm hoping that we will be able to fill some positions and ease some of the burden for prosecutors, support staff, paralegals, investigators across the board. If you have not already received this, you should be receiving it soon, but we have completed the trauma-informed work on our victim witness room. This is going to be next Friday, June 23rd at 3:30 p.m. at my office. We're going to have a special guest appearance by Senator Linda Holmes, who will actually do our official ribbon cutting. I'm inviting everyone to come walk through this space. I really wish in hindsight I had taken some before pictures because it was a white room in which the paint was severely going a very bad color. We had a horrible leather couch, some terrible furniture cabinets. We actually had a tube television still that had a number of VHS tapes that people could play, including Sister Act. But it was not a workable space for victims and witnesses who are expected sometimes to be there all week. So we've done a significant amount of research. We reached out to community organizations. We're able to get some donated items so that we didn't incur a lot of expense with this. And now I believe this room is a beautiful trauma-informed room which will make it a lot easier for people who have to relive the trauma of what has happened to them. A big thank you to Ms. Juby, who also connected me with individuals who gave us more ideas of how to create this trauma-informed room. So I would really ask that all of you please stop by during that day to see this wonderful waiting room, because we've worked really hard to make it a little bit better for people who have to come into court. I have nothing further unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mosser. Any questions for our state's attorney? Okay, thank you for being here. We will move on to our public defender, Ms. Conant. Good morning.
Good morning. Our reports are on file. Unfortunately, sort of the same scenario with us. We are continuing to focus on hiring. We have several open positions within the office. We are excited that we have 9 interns that have started for the summer. They've started at the end of the last month, beginning of this month. Several of those are return interns. So while we continue to try to hire and work diligently on that, bringing in interns does allow us to sort of train new attorneys and keep them coming back in the hopes that they will be new hires for us when they have graduated from law school. So we are focusing on that as well. The attorneys in our office are awesome at taking on the interns and training in them and working with them and showing what a great place King County is to work. So for the summer, we are focused on that. And then I have nothing else unless there are questions.
Thank you. Any questions for our public defender? Okay, thank you for being here. All right, we will move on to the agenda to our judiciary and courts. Chief Judge Hall, good morning.
Good morning. But Ms. Conant, human interest, didn't you just have a public defender break a world record?
Well, it's being looked into still, but yes, possibly. I don't know if anyone is aware, Wally Wordrick, who is an attorney in our office, he was on the front page of the Chicago Tribune, I believe on Monday. He kayaked a 4-member team. He was one of the members. They kayaked from Minnesota on the Mississippi River all the way down to New Orleans. And they believe they have broken the world record. It is still being verified, but they are pretty sure that they did. There also was a documentary team that followed them, and there will be a potential documentary about it as well. So we were super excited for them. Thank you, Judge Hull, for bringing that up.
It's only because my favorite book in 4th grade was the Guinness Book of World Records. So, good morning, everybody. Just not a big list of things to talk about. First, Safety Act. We continue to wait for the Supreme Court to announce that decision. Each month passes and we continue to wait, but that's all we can do. We continue to be prepared, and whenever that answer comes, we'll be ready to go. But I still want everybody to remember that that's still on our plate, and we'll be ready to go whatever that decision is. Judge Chuck Peterson is retiring. We have his party over at the 3rd Street Courthouse on June 26th. At 3 p.m. So everybody that would like to come over is welcome, but always great, bittersweet when you see somebody like him retire. Very excited for him. Very sorry to lose him. With that, we announced and just voted and selected our new judge. So Ms. Mosser's going to have to fill another spot because we took ASA Lark Cowart. She is our newest judge. Larry Lobb was a finalist as well. Lark has a long history with the county, a fantastic attorney, fantastic community servant, and somebody that we're very, very excited. So her first day will be on July 5th. And then the only other thing to report is that every 4 years, our associate judges have to get reappointed. It's a vote of the 14 circuit judges, and I'm happy to announce that all the associates were reappointed. So they'll be sworn in at the end of June to begin a new 4-year term. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I turn it over to Ms. O'Brien.
Any questions at this point? Okay, Ms.
Okay,
O'Brien, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Morning, how are you? This morning, I just want to let you know that we're presenting a resolution. We just have one this morning. I'm going to have Jason present it, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Jason, good morning.
Good morning. We just had the one resolution. It's authorizing the use of court funds, which is an enhancement and an upgrade to our jury payment system. We see a more diversified jury pool, and we want to open that up to multiple payment options for everybody that's serving on our jury. So this court fund system would actually involve the use of debit cards and about 6 other options. I know paper checks have been a popular topic in some other committees for jury service for people in Kane County. This would not preclude anyone from receiving a paper check. So we just want to put that out there. So we have that in front of you for your consideration.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve?
Roth will make a motion.
Mr. Roth moves,
Linder second.
Mr. Linder seconds. Any comments or questions? Ms. Gums?
I do have a quick question. If somebody could explain the debit card issue, that was brought to my attention. That the debit companies can reduce that amount that's on the card. I would like somebody to explain that to me. If
Sure, we
possible.
actually have our representative from Court Funds, Heath Rosenstein, on Zoom this morning. Heath, are you there?
I am, yes, Jason.
Could you answer that question for Ms. Gomes, please?
Absolutely, Ms. Gomes. Could you repeat that and detail that one more time for me, please?
Sure. It was brought to my attention about the debit card receipt for jurors that the debit company can reduce the amount if they don't use that funds. And I'm curious I just need some more information on that. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes, Ms. Gomes. So, and to the committee, the way that the program works is these jurors are paid their reimbursement of jury funds. And so at the time, they have up to 100 days before any maintenance or inactivity fees are hit amongst the cards, which is over 3 months. So if a juror decides to use their card and say they start using that 90 days, they're not going to receive any fees on that card that will reduce those funds at a 90-day mark. And once they hit it, once they spend it, then those times will reset. If the juror does happen to receive one of those fees, because we're not trying to collect money on fees, the reason why those fees are there also, Ms. Gomes, especially the maintenance fee, is just like my bank account, just like your bank account, and any juror that has their own personal bank account. If there is no activity on it, these accounts have to close out. You cannot keep an FDIC insured account open indefinitely. It has to have automatic mechanisms to close those accounts out. And so we operate within the same guidelines as FDIC. We are FDIC assured. We are governed by all of your federal laws and processes that take place. And so we have those to close those accounts out. So example, juror calls in, they've been paid, say they got paid in September and they got paid $40. So they say, you know what, I'm going to save this for Christmas because I want to spend this for Christmas. Well, when they go and start spending it for Christmas, they notice that there's been a reduction in their balance. And so they call the number that's on the back of that card. So we handle all the customer service issues. Any things that happen on the card, it's now through us. So they call us and they say, hey, by the way, I served, I had $40 on this account. I hadn't used it. I was saving it for Christmas. And now I have $30 on it because there was 3 months worth of maintenance fees. So we look at it and say, yep, absolutely. It looks like you had not been using that card. Or do you have that card in your possession? Yes, I have that card in my possession. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and put those fees back on your account and you'll have the entire $40 to use. Great. And so that's kind of how that works. It's just a mechanism to close those accounts out if they are not used. And so that's the long story to your question.
No, I like the long story. Thank you for the explanation. And it matters to folks. So I just want to make sure that we're letting them know that that's a possibility. That's super important to everybody. And I'm away.
Nice.
In addition, Ms. Guns, my name is Brad Labram. I'm also with Court Funds. In addition to the comment that Mr. Rosenstein just said, we do give a jacket with all that explained clearly on the jacket when the juror receives the card, so that we hope that we've answered all the questions, but we also include several ways for them to get additional help and answer any questions that they might have. And so I wanted to let you know that we try to communicate that as clearly as possible. We go to great lengths to try to make that happen.
Excellent. Thank you for answering the questions. I know there's other people that wanted that information.
Thank you. Mr. Roth.
Roth here. I would ask that we look into alternative type of debit cards. I know some gift cards, they say they will never deduct from the amount. I know it's not an easy decision or an answer, but it's something I think we should at least look at.
I would just like to make a comment that there are several circuits around the state currently using this system. They've been very pleased with the customer service and the ability for their jurors to be paid in another option beyond paper checks. And there has not been an issue as far as, like I said, not getting the fees or the money back. So we're pretty confident that we're not the first ones to try it. And then at this time, I'd also like to thank Treasurer Lausen for his support. We've had several meetings with him. He is on board and in full support of the program as well. So we ask that you authorize the resolution.
Okay, I guess I just have one question. It sounds a little cumbersome for our juries, for people who do jury duty, because the majority of them, kind of will probably grab that folder and put it away and not remember to use that card versus getting a paper check. How does it work through our auditing system? Because we have to keep track of everybody who gets money. I guess, I don't know if our auditor is here. I don't know if she can come up and just kind of answer that for me. I just want to make sure that we're keeping track of who's getting the card and how that the right person is getting the card and the right person is using it. There's no way, there's identity theft there, right? Because it's just a blank card. It doesn't have their name on it. So someone can find that card and use it.
Actually, that would begin in our juror check-in process. So we have a barcode for each juror
Okay.
that would be scanned. The corresponding card would be scanned at the same time in our jury system, because this system actually links up with our juror system. So there is a way to make sure that person is actually getting the card that is scanned for them.
And it's handed to them at the time that
Yes.
they're serving.
When they check in at jury service.
Okay.
It's not mailed or anything of that nature.
And the only other thing I want to add about that is when we talk about convenience, so before you had to serve, you did your jury duty and then you had to wait for a paper check. They're getting handed this as they walk out the door. So when we talk again about convenience and options, that money is instant money. So I think that there's a huge benefit in having that handed to them right there as they walk out versus having to wait for that check. If they want that, they can do that, but.
Well, currently, I can give you a little bit of insight on the process. I get the report from our jury commission about paying jurors. I enter that into our system. None of that would change. That report, all of that itemized information will be sent to the auditor's office, who then send me an email saying that these funds are approved for the treasurer to pay them out. The treasurer would just deposit those into the account where court funds would draw them out and pay the jurors in any fashion that the juror would prefer.
Hey, Ms. Wegman, sorry, I brought you up.
No, that's okay. So we're not fully sure how it will look once we start receiving the documents. We're under the understanding that it's going to continue down the same process that we currently are going through. But if the county board approves it, we will ensure that we are auditing it fully and report back if there's any issues.
Mr. Linder?
Thank you.
I heard that there are 5 ways of getting paid, none of which include a paper check. And all we've really talked about is this card. I'd like to know what those alternative means of being paid are. And then secondly, I guess, well, let's just stick with that for now.
Sure.
The other question, I do have the other question. If I take the card, what's the simplest way that I convert that to cash money?
Absolutely. So Mr. Linder, Mr. Roth, that's kind of your question as well. So there's multiple ways to access the funds on the account. The quickest way, as you first just mentioned, is to take that MasterCard and swipe it anywhere MasterCard is accepted. Second quickest way is you can go to a bank and you can take it to a bank, to a teller. You can go to the drive-through and say, hey, I want to take my $6 off of here. I want to take my $23 off of here. And with no fees, they'll give you the cash and you go about your way. I did this personally at a bank that I had a relationship with, and I did this personally at a bank I did not have a relationship with. So that's a great feature. The other ways are instant transfers, where somebody can take the money that they've been given through this process and immediately, just like a Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, transfer that into their bank account. They can transfer that to a credit card. They can transfer it to any way that they have possible, like they have a debit card or a credit card, they can put that in. They can do an ACH into their bank account. They can request a paper check and we'll send a paper check. They can purchase gift cards at discounted rates. They can also donate to approved charities by Kane County. So there's multiple ways that they can use these. They can do this via a website. They can do this via an app that's free to download via Google and Apple. So we give demographics so many different ways to access their funds. Because we know as we try to create a diverse panel, the idea is to hit all demographics. And we really don't want to leave anybody behind. And right now, the current process is giving a check. So here's the thing. If somebody doesn't have a check, 20% of your jurors that come in for jury duty do not have a bank account. And you can Google that, and it's on there. 20% of Americans do not have a bank account or a traditional banking. So they have to take that check and they have to go and cash it, which is at Walmart that I last checked is $4 minimum to cash a check. So depending on what size it is, they're already giving out $4 in fees. Second, they have to go and cash that. It's not like something that they can just go ahead and leave your court and go and swipe and use and access their funds. So the traditional methods really only hit one area. And it's basically saying, hey, we're only giving you one way and one way only to receive your payment. And now with this option, you're saying, hey, we're giving you not only that one way, which is through check, we're also giving you multiple ways that hits on your demographic. It hits on how you want to receive it. You want to receive it as an ACH? You can do that. You want to donate it? Guess what? You can do that. You want to do an instant transfer? Go ahead. You want to go and use this as a MasterCard? Great. Go ahead. And it's really giving the power back into the jurors on how they want to receive those funds, because it is a civic duty. It's something that they have to do and that we have to do, and to be able to give them a little bit easier way to access those funds and ultimately as well saving the county a lot of money when it comes to issuing and managing checks is a great, I believe, win-win for the entire circle.
Thank you, Heath. Mr. Roth.
I have 2 questions. One, how much savings are we looking at with going this process is the one question. And then the other is, it's really a 2-part. How many checks aren't cash currently, which means, they're sitting out there. And then I would also like to recommend that we track how many debit cards are not cashed, just to see if it is causing issues for our jurors going forward.
The cost of the cards themselves are 62 cents per card. That's the fee. I believe the cost in talking with the treasurer, it's over $7 to process and issue paper checks and mail them out.
Okay.
So it's a quite large savings per juror.
Okay.
I do not know how many checks that does not come through us are not cashed. I can't speak to that.
Chairman, Treasurer Lawson, welcome to the JPS committee.
It's a great pleasure to be with you again. So thank you for all the good work that everybody in this room does. Carlos Mata, who takes care of disbursements in the treasurer's office, has been with us for 27 years, does a wonderful job. Prepared this. It's basically about 1% of the checks do not get cashed, to cut to the bottom line. In 2022, that meant that about $7,337, but $7,300 was not cashed. In 2021, $6,900 was lost, not cashed. And then 2020, 7,100, so call it 7,100 rounded off. 2019, about 4,900. So far this year in 2020, it's about 5,200. So about $5,200. And what happens with those is we turn them back over to the state treasurer. So it's not like we keep money. It goes off to like unclaimed money.
And Treasurer Lawson, while you're still there, the $7 that we're saving, is that, that's included obviously the work that goes into the preparation of printing up each check,
Yes.
mailing it, putting in, doing all of that. So we're saving a lot of your office by going to this
Correct.
third party. Okay.
Correct. It's about 84 cents direct cost. So it's a savings immediately. That includes the postage, and the postage continues to rise. And then the labor costs that you're referring to. There are a number of other advantages. I was just taking a look in the back row at an article in the Associated Press where the Postal Service people are concerned that there's an explosion, 73% increase in postal workers being attacked and then robbed for any money that they might be carrying. So loss of funds.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Any other
Madam Chairman.
questions for our treasurer while he's here? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding this resolution?
I just like to thank everybody, including the treasurer and the auditor, for speaking on this morning. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Madam Chair Gums, I do have one more. I'm really sorry to belabor
No,
this.
go
but
ahead, Ms. Gums, go ahead.
Thank you. So I just want to ask, will we be sending letters to the recipients of the debit cards to remind them to use it before a certain period?
Mrs. Gums, they will also, and I failed to mention this, when the treasurer, after it's been approved by the auditor, and then the treasurer then disperses those funds, and we then disperse those to the jurors, they will receive a text or an email notifying them that those funds are ready to claim, they're ready to spend. You have a great jury system. It captures the phone numbers of jurors that are coming in. So they do get those touches that reminds them that, hey, you're supposed to be, or you haven't claimed your funds, or you haven't used your funds. We do have this set up on auto. So if they don't claim it, they'll get one a week later, 2 weeks later, just as a little nudge to remind them that, hey, you have money that you earned to serving, and you still need to use.
Okay, thank you for answering that. And Treasurer Lawson, if you could just tell me briefly how that system works now with the checks. Is the treasurer still there?
Yeah, give him a second to come
There
back
he
up.
is. Thank you
Yes.
very much, sir.
You know, we cooperate in support with the court system. We get the information. The treasurer or the auditor checks it, and after the auditor's finished with her approving it, then we just do the disbursement. So we would continue to do what we've done in the past as far as disbursement. The auditor continues to do what she does in auditing it, and the court system continues to make sure that people get paid for the time that they give us.
Okay, so right now we don't send any I mean, I guess
Oh,
the reminder
actually,
part is very important for me because you know, I just want to make sure people are not losing their earnings.
that is a very important consideration. You're certainly right. Again, in the short one pager that Carlos Mata gave me, said, this is a quote from a note, "I took the initiative," this is Carlos. Carlos took the initiative on mailing out reminder letters to each outstanding juror on a month-to-month basis. Since pre-printed checks state void after 60 days, I started mailing out a reminder letters after 30 days from issue date, which was an additional, he points out, an additional 53.1 cents per mailing. Let's see, yeah. And so, yes, there is a reminder. It is interesting that just in the mail the other day, actually dated April 28th, Old Second National Bank in Aurora and in King County sent out a letter to their stockholders. Basically, it says, due to the increase in postal workers being robbed and mail stolen, the excessive high volume of dividend checks that go missing and need to be replaced, we're encouraging you to set up individual for direct deposit. Interesting that the letter was dated April 28th. It didn't arrive to shareholders until May 10th, at least one shareholder in their group. So the promptness that people get paid for their work is a potential advantage of this system.
Thank you very much for answering the question.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one more question.
Mr.
Sorry.
Roth, go ahead.
Who will be reporting on the debit cards not being cashed? Because it won't be the treasurer anymore. Is that correct?
We would probably request those reports from court funds.
Okay.
As they would have those and have them readily available for us.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have reports of unclaimed, and we follow all these treatment laws that Illinois has as
So
well.
it'd be interesting to see, whether it goes down or up.
This is a
something
huge
we shouldn't
improvement.
monitor.
This is a huge improvement.
Oh,
over
yeah,
what-
no,
over what
I
we have.
agree. $7 is a
Yeah,
huge
it's
cost
just,
savings. I agree.
it just, we've worked hard on it. I appreciate the questions, but
Right.
the cost savings, safety, it's a much better system.
Yeah, I don't disagree
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
part.
Ms. Wegman?
We do plan on putting some processes in place, although we don't know what they look like yet, to make sure that we are following up on the cashed and the uncashed debit cards. So regardless of what anybody else is doing, we will also be attempting to put something in place.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, good discussion. Anything else? Okay, may I have roll call, please, on this resolution?
Gums,
Gums is a yes. Thank you for your indulgence.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
approved.
Okay, this is approved and we'll move on to our finance. Okay, pretty exciting. Thank you, guys. Okay, and anything else from judiciary? Okay, we'll move on to court services. Ms. Ost, good morning.
Good morning. I don't have any resolutions in front of you this morning, but I do want to give you some updates on some things happening in the department. So the first thing is that you can see our statistics are on file for this month. And I want to highlight that in the month of April, we had 0 resignations, and in May, we had 2 resignations. So for about 30 days, I was fully staffed, which was super exciting for me in all sincerity. Right now, we do have like 4 to 5 openings, and we're working on that, and we're actively interviewing, and we hope to get those spots filled soon. The second thing is that I emailed out to everybody last night that our Juvenile Justice Center, the JJC, as we locally call it, recently, actually, they've undergone 3 audits in the last few months. They've undergone a PREA audit, which stands for the Prison Rape Elimination Act. They've undergone an audit by the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice, and now they've undergone an audit by the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts. And I've asked Superintendent Mike Davis to be here this morning to answer any questions, should you have any, but I did send you the summary that does highlight that they are the best juvenile detention facility in the state, and they are going to be used as the model for all other juvenile detention facilities, especially highlighting their use of cognitive behavioral interventions with these minors. And that goes, right in line with everything we've talked about, that we use proven evidence-based interventions to try to help reduce recidivism and get at what is the underlying cause of some of the behaviors that some of these young people are displaying. And so we're so incredibly proud of them, and they've done such an amazing job. And I just can't thank Mr. Davis and his staff enough for everything that they've done.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for being here. Yeah, if you haven't read that report, I mean, it's stellar. The work your department does. Thank you so much for everything you do for everybody who's there for the JJC Wonderful. Okay.
I'm just going to add one thing on
Yes.
that. You know, over the last 3.5 years as chief judge, and then all the time that I worked for the state attorney's office, the county always talks about recognizing individual efforts and it's across the board. But what I guess I want to make sure that everybody understands about Mike and his staff is that Mike is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's not just a cliche. That really is true. You know, we encourage Mike to take vacation. It's hard to get Mike to take vacation because the way that he and his staff look at that, but especially Mike, is that building is his. And he is responsible for everything from the artwork that goes on there, each kid, each staff member. And he just really, again, and he will be the first one. I know that he's uncomfortable right now as I talk about him. But what we talk about is that, you know, reports like this are important to share, not only to recognize Mike, but also to recognize his staff and also to let all the counties across Illinois who have a choice of where to send their kids to send them to us. Because when you look, and it would be a deep dive, but one of the great things that they've done is they've put all these different audits up so that people can compare the different JJCs. And so, you know, when we were just recently, we were with the DuPage County and we were talking to them, they have a choice to make. When you're going to send your kids somewhere, where do you want to send them? Do you want to send them to some place that's going to have that type of staff and that type of effort? Or do you want to send them someplace where it's cheaper? And I think, you know, on our answer, if you care about your kids, send them to Kane County and they're going to get treated well. And so I just want to piggyback on what Director Oss said, because it's a labor of love that he and his staff do. And we're very, very blessed to have him. So just publicly to thank Mike and his staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And so the next item that I want to turn it over to Director Sang. This is in line with every month. I'm trying to highlight a little bit more about our department and the things that we accomplish and the good work that we do. And Dr. Sang and her staff, she's the head of the Diagnostic Center. I'll turn it over to her and she'll tell you what they do over at what we call the KCDC.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to present to you my annual report for 2022 and update you on the services we provided and some new things that we have incorporated. So if you don't know already, we are housed in the King County Branch Court. And if you have not been by, you have an open invitation to stop by anytime. I really love to give tours of our facility. We moved into this building about 6-7 years ago. It still looks pretty new, so I'm very excited. But that really has allowed us to expand our services. And so we are just very happy for the county's support back in the day in helping us to relocate. So KCDC exists by statute. We exist to serve the 16th Judicial Circuit Court System. So we are not a freestanding community mental health center. Everything we do is by court order or court referral. So you have to be somewhere in the court system, anywhere from pretrial to post-conviction to receive our services. And we also fall under the umbrella of court services. So we are an arm of court services along with JJC and probation. Who we are is I have 7 full-time staff psychologists working for me. They are all doctorate and master's level staff with licenses in both clinical psychology for the state of Illinois, and most of us are also licensed as sex offender evaluators. And I'll talk about those type of cases in a little bit. But a lot of education, a lot of expertise that goes into the work that we do. I also have a support staff, and again, no agency or department can exist without their support staff. So I always like to give shout outs to them. And we also are a doctoral level internship, which I will also talk about in just a bit. But Nicolette Mayboost, our current doctoral intern, has accepted our postdoc position for next year. So she will stay on. And here is a picture of Dr. Van Opstal with Chief Judge Hall. We are also all sworn officers of the court. So that's who we are. And I am at this point fully staffed. So I couldn't say that for the last 2-3 years, absent one intern, but in terms of staff, I am fully staffed. So what we do, we are the best known for our psychological evaluations, and that really is our primary role for the court system. I would say 80%, 80% of the work we do are to provide psychological evaluations for the court. And we do about 38 different types of evaluations. So it's not just one thing. I am proud to say we are probably, if not the most comprehensive diagnostic center in the nation in terms of we can answer any forensic question or referral that the court has for us. I have over 100 different types of psychological testing at my disposal just so that we are very well equipped to answer whether it's a neuropsychological a question, anything forensic related, and we do juvenile and adult cases and even have seen some children. So I have tests that, comprise the gamut of all those age ranges. But we are lesser known, but we still do things such as mandated treatments. We do a lot of trauma-informed treatment, especially associated with drug court clients who have trauma histories. And best practices, indicate that to become sober and be successful in recovery, you really should also be working on underlying trauma that probably led you to use substances. So we do that. We do a lot of suicide assessments, crisis managements. Sometimes we get called into probation offices to de-escalate. We do crisis debriefings as well and do things like testify as expert witnesses when we are subpoenaed to talk about some cases. And we are also involved in the specialty courts, drug court and mental health court. I have staff who sit on those and other kind of, task forces. And we go to different court involved meetings with our justice partners, do a lot of psychoeducation. And we also are in charge of the Kids First Divorce Parenting Program. So we're pretty comprehensive in terms of all that we do. Just to get into more specifics, last year we conducted 411 psychological evaluations. Now, about half of those are what we just call full psychological evaluations. And those would be all your domestic batteries, all your risk assessments, sex offender evaluations, all the juvenile cases would fall under kind of this very wide general heading. And then about half of the other evaluations are very specialized forensic specific questions with very specific referral questions and opinions that we would give to the court system, to help the judges with our opinions. So we also provided 821 treatment intervention hours. Most of those are individual therapy sessions. So just like you would do in the private practice realm, they're usually once a week, 1-hour sessions where people would come in to the diagnostic center for their treatment. But however, we also do go into the jail if need be and provide treatment even to the outer probation offices if people have transportation issues and such. So as long as you're within the system, we will come to you as well. We did some family sessions. We did about 10 suicide assessments and then did Kids First sessions, which I will talk about in just a little bit. Most of the evaluations that we do are on adults, and that is just very much in line with who commits crimes. Juveniles do not commit crimes at the same rate as adults do. So about 1/4 of our services, and this is historically very consistent, are on juvenile offenders, and then the majority are on adults who have committed felonies. We have also provided over 1,200 consultation hours. That includes our presence at specialty court hearings, which are about 195 hours, about 40 hours of expert testimony, and the majority of our consultation hours are spent in supervision. And by that, I mean, we do run a full-time doctoral internship program as well as a practicum program for diagnostic externs, and those we need to supervise. But it's definitely worth it because our interns are the ones who do most of our post-conviction cases. So that way I could assign the pretrial cases that move faster and are usually more complicated to staff psychologists. So that works out for me in that capacity. Last year, we also conducted about 107 forensic evaluations. Those usually are top level ones, are fitness to stand trial. In that number, I include things like fitness to proceed pro se, fitness to be sentenced. There's a lot of specialty areas that can fall under this specific type of evaluation, but we do a lot of fitness to stand trial. That number is the highest we have had in the last 5 years. Sanity evaluation, that is actually also the highest number I have had in the last 5 years, certainly. And what that means is, was someone insane or sane at the time of the crime? And those are very long, elaborate cases, usually on murder cases. I would say majority of sanity cases, the crime is murder. So a lot of work goes into it. Miranda, we did not do any Miranda warning evaluations last year, although I usually have about 2 to 5 every year. And transfer evaluations refer to juvenile court. If the crime is pretty severe, usually class X felonies, should the juvenile be tried in adult court? That's called a transfer evaluation. We would do that evaluation and then give our opinion to the court. Some of our evaluations that we do, just to give you a little bit about why we sometimes ask for continuance and how much goes into an evaluation. I'm going to use sex offender evaluations as an example. Last year, we did about 70, and this is probably my most comprehensive evaluation. Takes about 30 hours to do one. So basically that means one staff almost for a week, although it's broken up, obviously. But it's a very, very comprehensive evaluation that we have to adhere to by the SAMBA board, which is a sex offender management board. Again, we're licensed to do this, but it's basically a full psychological battery plus very specialized instruments that include computerized testing, actuarial measures, 3 different types of risk assessments, clinical interview, you have your sexual history interview, aggression measures, and all that, goes into a report where we tell the court what we think the risk level is on that person, so they could then make adequate sentencing, help the judge with sentencing. Should this person be out on probation, or are they too dangerous to live in society and should be sentenced to the Department of Corrections? We also run the Kids First Divorce Parenting Education Program. That is a program that exists by statute. So any divorcing parent in the county, in Illinois, actually, with minor children has to have 4 hours of psychoeducation in terms of listening and learning about the impact of divorce on children. So this is not a program where we teach parents, divorcing parents, how to get along with each other. It's not about them. It's all about the children and how to co-parent effectively in order to reduce the effects, especially in contentious divorces, reduce the effects of divorce on children. So last year, we had 856 people go through the program. 764 were in English. I'm proud to say we are fully capable of providing Spanish-speaking classes as well with a licensed native speaker, Spanish-speaking psychologist. All our website too, that's corresponding with this program, you could toggle it and it could be in English or Spanish. Brochures are also in Spanish. So we are fully equipped to accommodate both languages. We are also equipped to accommodate ADA type of needs. So if someone is hard of hearing or has literacy issues and can't read, we will literally invite them to the diagnostic center, sit with them in front of a computer, explain everything so they could successfully get their certificate with this program. In this program, we do collect fees for it. So just a little under $100,000 was collected for this program. And this was basically what I said, and it is run by 2 clinical psychologists. So I always have 2 psychologists to do the program. And it's virtual at this point to make it easier for people. One new thing that we did last year is to really focus on trauma. And as Lisa Ost was saying about trauma and evidence-based practices, really, most of the people that we serve in the system really have trauma histories. People don't wake up one day and decide they want to commit crimes or have an addiction. There's usually some life events or something that happened to kind of get people on this path. And so what we are recognizing at KCDC is most of our clients have some sort of trauma. So 2 big things that we have done. First of all, I converted one of our testing rooms into a very trauma sensitive treatment room that does not look the same as our other rooms as you see here. We have a very warm and inviting space. We actually have a fountain. What you notice, even little things such as we have little lamps in there because what we have found is overhead lighting, especially in people with sexual abuse histories, is a trigger. Because usually the turning on the bedroom light on and off is usually associated with the beginning and end of being sexually abused. So we do not use our overhead lights typically. We have lights dispersed throughout the room just to kind of remove that trigger. So that's just an example of the type of thought process that went into this room. The other big thing that is very new, myself and another full-time staff psychologist has recently completed and been trained in EMDR, which is a very specialized type of therapy. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And basically what that does is takes memories of traumatic events, and actually it's it has your brain reprocess the memories so they are no longer bothersome to you. The VA has moved to use this. It is very much used with PTSD and vets. Law enforcement officers who have undergone some traumatic incidents are starting to use it, but I believe we're the only diagnostic center in the nation that has this free of service to our clientele, which are defendants. We have started and begun using this with, again, drug court clients, especially who have those traumatic histories. But we also utilize other kind of trauma, different approaches like narrative exposure therapy, cognitive processing. So again, we have a bit of a range of what that individual needs and try to accommodate whatever is best for that person. KCDC also runs a full-time doctoral level internship program with a forensic emphasis. This is a program we've had for as long as I believe we've existed. What's different is that about 2 years ago, we have applied, we're accredited by one type of accreditation body, but the big one is APA accreditation. So the APA is American Psychological Association. We have submitted our application about a year ago and passed all the written application process. Our final step is to have a site visit from Washington to come down. And it's usually 2, 3, 4 days where they would fly in, meet with every single staff member, associated staff, and we are scheduled for a site visit this fall. However, we need one more intern to successfully have them come out. And I know Chief Judge Hull has, I think, been the most staunch advocate for accreditation and our number one support. So we have been working with him in terms of trying to get that one intern. And the problem, there's two things. A lot of forensic programs have shut down, and there are about 300 open forensic internship spots in the nation that are unfilled. So we are one of many, about 52 agencies that are kind of in the same boat. But we just all of court services and chief judge and the office of the chief judge have been very much invested, and we have met and tried to brainstorm to make sure we can sustain that site visit. But we are very close to reaching that level of accreditation, which would be a very proud moment for all of us. Part of what else we do, and this is just a sampling of just kind of community outreach with both within the system and outside of the system. We present a lot to the King County Bar Association. I've been involved in some podcasts with the state's attorney's office. I've written some articles in the Illinois State Bar Journal. I've been a guest speaker at some Aurora University, just talking about forensic psychologists and just really talking about King County and just, spreading the wealth of knowledge. And here is just a sampling of some of the presentations I conducted last year, and we really enjoy doing that. And then we also continue every year. We update all our psychological testings, make sure we know what the best knowledge is in the field. Here's a picture of us. The first one is at the Illinois chapter of the Sex Offender Conference, where we really, got the new materials and the risk assessments. And the bottom is kind of a fun picture. Last fall, we attended the American Forensic Psychology Conference, which is a nationwide conference, and they had a contest. It was a forensic Jeopardy contest. And KCDC staff won the whole thing. That's where you see the error. Dr. Ellis O'Connor won all the questions, which comprised of statutory, but really the feather in the cap is sitting to the man sitting next to her on the left is the guru in the field. If you remember such cases as Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, Andrea Yates, who killed her children, Oklahoma City bombing, he did those cases, but KCDC beat his pants off. So I had to brag about that because we're everywhere. And even at this conference, I saw old interns and staff from California and from Boston who work in the federal prison systems. And it's kind of like one big happy family. It was a big reunion, and that was really fun. And so actually Dr. O'Connor got a free conference ticket for this coming year. She gets to go free. So good for her. And again, hats off. So, and just my last slide is just to let you know, referrals are on the increase. If you look at 2020, we had 324 referrals for that year. And that was still kind of COVID and after. But then you have 414, and then last year, 533. And this year we are on the trajectory of bypassing even last year's numbers. So I am, the interns are integral, the being fully staffed, that's a big component just so we can keep doing the work we do for the court system and in a, relatively expedited fashion. And if you have any questions beyond this presentation here, again, if you know where Teresa works, I'm her neighbor right across the hall in the circuit clerk's building. But here's my specific contact information and my direct phone line. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. It's always you always impress us so much when you come in. Any comments or questions, Mr. Roth?
It was a very good presentation. I did have a couple questions. How many years has the Kids First been in existence?
We took it over probably 5-6 years ago, but it had existed in a way completely different format for decades, I believe.
And you mentioned it's virtual. Has it
Yes.
always been virtual?
No, it has not. When we had COVID, we converted it into a virtual format, but we have kept it such because these are parents with minor children and this allows them. We said, why not? It works better than having to come in. It's an after hours program. So we were paying for court security because it's 6 to 8 p.m.
Right.
And it just worked in terms of convenience. And again, the whole point is delivery of services to the people. And if that everyone was happy with that format, so we kept it.
Well, and that answered my next question. Is it a better being virtual?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the other question, you mentioned you charge approximate revenue, 100,000. Does that cover all the costs? I mean, it's a worthwhile program, so that doesn't matter in my
It goes
sense.
into the, yeah.
So we've done cost studies over the years and we have found that having our KCDC saves us a tremendous amount of money. So the cost of a psychologist is far cheaper on an annual basis than subcontracting that out. A lot of counties will subcontract out on the free market for psychologists to perform these kinds of evaluations. Something like a sanity evaluation that's needed or necessary for court can cost thousands of dollars. And to do those many evaluations on a yearly basis, their budgets are millions of dollars.
So
whereas
it is a cost
KCDC
savings
Right
then,
around
but-
1 million.
I will add to that, yes, in the private sector, you're running into two problems. It is exorbitant amount, but our tests are also so specialized, you cannot just go to any psychologists.
Right.
But I've been approached by all the adjoining counties and jurisdictions about, can you do this? Or we would love for you. And I'm like, I have to commit to Kane County. But they are running into problems about there's no one to refer these type of cases. And if you're looking at about $200 an hour, like that sex offender, where you're doing 30 hours, that's at least 6,000. I don't know if my math is correct, $6,000 then maybe just for one report.
Okay.
And Mr. Roth, I'd love to just comment on that. So Dr. Singh just referenced it, but we have all our surrounding counties who want to access and use the Kane County Diagnostic Center.
Right.
And so collectively, we had to make a decision as to, with the number of cases that were coming in, Dr. Singh does a great job of focusing on our in custody, because when we talk about, and we've talked about it here for a long time, one of the things we want to do when we're talking about the jail population is we want to continue to move in custody cases as fast as we can. In the past, what would happen is somebody would be in custody, they would have an evaluation that would be ordered, and they would have to wait for months in order to get that done. So a couple different things that Dr. Singh has done is, one is she has prioritized the in custody cases. And so that's been a big, and the other thing is we've had to turn away other counties, which is a tough decision. But again, when we look at the use of Kane County taxpayer dollars, the issue is to focus on what we have. And so that's what we've done. The other thing that I wanted to mention, just like we talk about the KCDC, the JJC being recognized statewide.
Right.
We just recently had a listening tour where the Supreme Court Justice and other people came. Scott Block, who is a statewide level. And again, they're looking at our diagnostic center as the model. So again, it's one of that feedback loop where we continue to hear.
Okay.
But so.
No, I think it's a great program. That brings up another question. Are we having to turn any in-county people away? Or are we able to handle everything in county?
Right, because they're court-ordered. So
Okay.
by statute, we can't turn them away
Okay,
because
okay.
we do it on behalf of the court. So
Okay.
there is a small wait list, but her and her
Okay.
staff do get to it. And actually, I want to, especially as the county's exploring the Capitol building project going forward.
Right.
One of the things is when the KCDC, they used to be at that small, it almost looks like a Pizza Hut building, on Fabian Parkway in front of the old jail.
Right.
They had a longer wait list because the facility itself was not conducive to expediting the completion of cases. Where they're at now, just the physical layout of that office, it virtually eliminated their wait list when they were able to move into that office. And so, it's important to think about even things like that. Like, what does the office look like? Where is it situated? How close is it to the jail? All of these things make a difference, and they've been able to clear up a lot of that backlog.
Okay, Lisa, you said there's a small wait list. What's the waiting time period for Dr. Singh?
It ebbs and flows. Right now, we have, I don't know. I would probably say 16 people, which is not bad at all on the pretrial wait list.
Okay.
And again, there's 7 people. I mean, I don't have a huge department, and for us to do, everything that we do, that's not bad. But those are, I could say the wait list are just cases that have come in the last few weeks. And what Chief Judge has done, and I think this is very helpful, is every couple of weeks, I send him the spreadsheet of who is pretrial, and especially whether they're in custody, out of custody, who's on the wait list, what the status is. And that really has moved cases. But we have never turned anyone away because we are so comprehensive. We could absorb virtually anything that comes our way. It's actually the opposite. It's other jurisdictions asking us, turning stuff like saying, we don't have psychologists who know how to do this. Can you do this? And unfortunately, at this point, we say no. But we have never, to answer your question directly, turned anyone away for anything.
Okay. You said 16 on the wait list. What's the average wait time? Is it a week?
It really depends. If it's a fitness, that gets, especially if it's in custody, I could assign that pretty quickly. Sex offender, if it's a pretrial, that I have to wait for the licensed staff to do. And we're going to a conference at the end of the summer where we all will be licensed, because it takes years to obtain that licensure too. So I have half of us are licensed. So I have to save those for just, I have like 3-4 people who could do those. So it really depends on what type of evaluation it is.
And then I had some questions.
Mr. Ross, I'm going to have to hold you with your questions because we have another committee after this. I'm going to let,
Bye.
yeah.
Bye.
Mr. Linder?
Yeah, just quickly, I think reading between the lines, I figured this answer out, but you say you have 7 are they full-time dedicated to this program? They're not people who are coming in and out for cases.
No,
Okay.
they, Monday through Friday, strictly Kane County, correct?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going to move on our agenda to our circuit clerk, Ms. Barrero. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I can't tell if this thing is lit. Okay. My report's on file. I would like to say that I noticed in our totals for the monthly report that we're missing May's files scheduled for court, which is strange, but I apologize for that. If anybody needs those numbers, I can get them to you. We have everything is kind of up with our files, and our phone calls are up, but it's pretty standard for this time of year. A lot of people call and think we're the county clerk to get their birth certificates, so we get a lot of strange phone calls. We have to date, I believe, 94 employees. We are down 18. We might have 96 employees. We are down 18, which is really good, even though it sounds really bad, because we've been very slim pickings for a long time. So we're building that up. And the goal is to complete all those new hires, hopefully by the end of the year. I have made some changes to our pay scale. So hopefully we will start seeing more applicants come in. Collections, we received yeah, 148,000 this month. I'm sorry, for April. And I wanted to let everybody know that I sent out our annual report. If you didn't get it or if you have questions, please let me know. And then I'm only going to mention the number, Judge, because it's not a good thing, but there is a bill that everyone should pay attention to. And it is SB 208. It is also 820 ILCS 192. And it's the Pay Leave for All Workers Act. And it really needs to get on everybody's radar going forward. Throughout the county, they thought that the government would not be affected. And I was at an event, and yes, the government will be affected. So counties will be affected. So we need to really pay attention to that, all administration.
Thank you, Ms. Barrow. Okay, any questions for Circuit Clerk? Okay, thank you for being here. We'll move on to our Coroner Russell.
Yes, I'm here. Reports on file. Just wanted to say that the annual report, my annual report is done earliest ever. And unfortunately, it wasn't done early enough to get on the agenda. So, but I will send it out electronically to everyone to look at. Beyond that, the lab is getting going, and it's going to be a while. It's a process. The collaboration between the state's attorney and the sheriff and myself is it's been wonderful to work with both of them. We're able to, I truly believe, it's we're doing the baby step approach, which is right now we're in the crib and we're just flailing our arms and our legs, but at some point we'll be crawling. And once we crawl, that's where we will be fully operational. But then when we start walking, to me, that's when, it's actually sustaining itself. By the time we get to running, hopefully that will be a source of revenue for the county. And, but we'll see. It's a process, and it's going to take a while to get there. I don't know how long, but we're evaluating and just doing what we can do. So that's all I have, unless somebody has questions.
Thank you, Coroner Russell. Any questions? Okay, thank you for being here. Okay, we will move on our agenda to old business. We have Mr. Van Kerkhoff here. On the agenda today is amending the ordinance, amending Chapter 15 of the Kane County Code. Hello again, Mr. Van Kerkhoff.
Good morning.
You take
Good
it
to
from
be
here.
back with everyone again. I always learn so much by coming to this committee, so thank you for that. I have two items I can update with on. One is the proposed amendments to Chapter 15 regarding noise, and then also when you're done with that, if you'd like, I can give you a verbal update on progress on the Chapter 12 amendments regarding discharge of firearms. But first to noise, two parts to that. First, I want to thank our state's attorney's office and Board Member Williams, who's taken a hands-on involvement in drafting amendments to that ordinance. That has resulted in a draft that did get on your agenda today. And you may or may not want to discuss that in detail after you hear the second part of our update. Which is in that draft, you might notice that in moving to a decibel level basis for citing noise and sound violations, it says to be determined because as we got deeper and deeper into learning about sound and noise and decibel levels and how to measure it and enforce it, State's Attorney Coyle and myself realized that there's a lot we don't know. So we went out, we got a recommendation on a sound expert who is with us this morning. He actually happens to be a resident of Kane County now as well. Mr. Williams and Mr. Coyle and myself had a really productive meeting with him via Zoom and realized that there is a lot we don't know about noise. We don't know. So we've asked Dr. Thunder to come and give you a presentation on what we learned to help you understand sort of what the state of the art is on noise and noise ordinances. So with that, I'm going to introduce Dr. Tom Thunder.
Are the slides up? Okay,
Good morning, Dr. Thunder.
thank you. And on topic of noise, who would you rather have here? Somebody by the name of Thunder give the presentation or some other name, right?
Great name.
Great name for the field. Little did I know growing up, I was going to enter the field of hearing and noise. Just a quick little background on me. Yes, I am a resident of Kane County. I live up in Pingree Grove. Most of you probably don't know where that is, but it gained world fame as the epicenter of the earthquake in 2010. So we all know where Pingree Grove is. So I've been an adjunct professor at Northern for 30 years. I graduated from Northern, got my doctorate out in Philadelphia in the area of audiology, which is hearing science. And I wasn't satisfied with that. I went on for further instruction at the Illinois Institute of Technology to work on a degree program in acoustics and vibration. So I get to wear two hats many times. But at Northern and also at Rush University, I've been an adjunct professor teaching primarily courses in psychoacoustics, which is the blend of psychology and acoustics, and hearing loss prevention, which is the occupational. So I get very actively involved in both occupational and environmental noise issues. I grew up in Park Ridge. I was early introduced to the area of noise with planes coming out of O'Hare Airport, and the nun at the Mary Seat of Wisdom School had to stop about every 3 minutes so that she could just wait till the plane went over and then started to talk again. So I think those are my earliest roots in the area of environmental noise. I had a presentation kind of put together here because Mark had thought maybe it would be worthwhile to give you kind of a quick background on noise as we were looking at the Kane County drafts and so forth. So we're going to talk about noise as an activity, interference, and annoyance issue. I've seen some codes. I've looked at a lot of codes around the country in my consulting work. Some are really high, some are way too low, but I saw one the other day that was 80 dB. 80 dB is the level where it should start to cause a hearing impairment, not just environmental noise. And some are just way, way too low. Up in Barrington, for example, they have a code of 45 decibels, and gosh, just standing near some of the busier towns, you're up to 65 dB. So when you pick a number, it has to be relevant to the kind of area that you're in to really help prevent interference with concentration, productivity, relaxation, and sleep, and so forth. It's affecting the use and enjoyment of one property. Now, when we do an assessment on noise, there are acoustical factors which are easy to measure. We'll talk a little bit about the use of phone apps, iPhone apps, and so forth that the sheriffs could use, the deputies could use. Intensity can be measured in decibels, frequency is measured in hertz, duration obviously measured in minutes and hours and so forth. But there are non-acoustical factors too that enter into it, because this is the psychological component. Time of day is a big one. The same kind of noise that occurs during the day that might be acceptable would be totally unacceptable at midnight when you're trying to sleep. There's also a non-acoustic factor of character. For example, impulsive noise. When you talk about gunfire noise and gun ranges and things of that sort, or DJ bands and things of that sort. Character of noise, we've learned in the last several decades, is an extremely important aspect that has to be addressed. And also expectations. What do you expect where you live? If you're living near an industrial plant, you have to expect that there's probably going to be higher noise levels. But if you're moving out to rural areas of Kane County or something like that, you're doing it to enjoy the peace and quiet. And then somebody wants to put in an asphalt plant right next to you, that changes the entire sound scope of the neighborhood. The setting of actual limits really goes back to the early days of the US EPA in the 1970s. It's a big document. It's on the web. It's called the levels document because it's got 15 different words in the title. So we just call it the levels document. They took a look at a lot of noise that was traffic noise primarily in trying to set up a level that would protect the public against the adverse effects of environmental noise. And so what they decided on, based on this graph that you see here, this is a graph that shows the percent of people that are highly annoyed as a function of the decibel level. This is the day-night level. We'll talk about that in a second. But you can see at about 55 dB is where that curve starts to take a big jump. So at 55 dB, it's not like a threshold. We're below 55 dB. Nobody is bothered by the noise, and above 55 dB, everybody is. It follows this curve, and it shows that maybe only 1 out of 20 people or so would register that noise as highly annoying. And that's basically what they based their 55 dB recommendation. Now, the US EPA does not have any regulations on noise. People mistake that. There's no regulatory language on noise. What this document was a document for states, for counties, municipalities to take a look, read, and then decide how their own code was going to be structured to fit the needs of their own community. It's a 24-hour average. So it's a time average, not just over a minute or an hour or something. It's a 24-hour average. But notice we call it a day-night level because at nighttime, there's a 10 decibel penalty. So the US EPA decided that nighttime was defined as the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And you see that time range very, very frequently in municipal codes, state codes, county codes, and so forth. I don't know that that's necessarily right for this county. Based on most of my work, which is done in the Chicagoland area, I can tell you that daytime doesn't start at 7, it starts at 6. It gets pretty noisy. And a lot of people want to go to bed and relax after 9, not 10. And so I've seen some codes that have shifted that from a 10 to a 7 definition to a 9 to 6 a.m. So the county's free to do something like that if they feel that it's more congruent with the lifestyles in the community. But the important thing is that they place this 10 dB penalty. Why? Because of the time of day aspect, that people are more exposed to that. Now, that was a concept in the 70s that was really hard to try to measure because we had no instruments that could really measure that kind of thing in real time. There was a lot of work to go around to it. When Illinois got around to deriving theirs, they said, well, we're not going to try to go for a day-night level that's 24 hours. We don't have the staff to go out and have people sit on somebody's property for 24 hours. So we're going to do this. We're going to limit daytime noise to 55 dB. And we're going to limit nighttime noise to 45 dB. In effect, because that 10 decibel difference, they're trying to address the day-night level. So the state of Illinois' code is very consistent with the US EPA nighttime and daytime limits. Now, how does that fare out? This is a graph from the American National Standards Institute that really shows typical sound levels based on areas ranging from rural residential or very quiet suburban areas all the way up to very noisy urban residential areas. So where does this 55 dB limit fall in? It falls in here where you would consider it to be a noisy suburban residential area. The nighttime of around 45, 46 would be kind of at the bottom there. So 55 day, 45 nighttime is going to be applicable to these type of communities. Where I've run into problems in the state of Illinois is when you have noise environments that are in these areas. And this is the big problem, and I've worked on wind turbine projects. The wind turbine companies will tell you, well, we'll meet the 45 dB nighttime. And you go out and you measure what the rural sound levels are, and you get, what do you get? You get 30, 35. Every time you go up 10 dB, it doubles the sound. So just going from 35 to 45 is double the sound. So the windmills put double the sound from what they're used to. It gets back to what are the expectations for those folks? And so that's why a lot of counties need to restructure what they do when they're talking about wind turbines and things of that sort to make more of a buffer zone to allow that sound to dissipate to a more reasonable level. This is a very typical code. codes that specify the source, whether that source is industrial, commercially zoned, or residentially zoned. Why does that make a difference? It really shouldn't, you'd think. But again, if you're living near an industrial area, it gets back to that expectations. If you move into an area, a new place is developed right across the street from an existing plant that's been there for 10, 20 years. The expectation should be that I'm moving into a noisier area. In fact, if you look at some of the subdevelopments, there are some subdevelopers that will actually charge less for homes closer to an industrial facility for that particular reason, because of that expectation. Illinois does the same kind of thing. But for the most part, for noise generated from commercial places like Walmarts, trucking docks, things of that sort, and from residential, of course, that would be like pools, outdoor pools that have pumps that run all day, or generators. That's pretty popular now, backup generators. You have levels that are, again, consistent with the state of Illinois, consistent with the US EPA. So these are the very common limits if you're looking at limits 55 day, 45 at night. So in the state of Illinois, 55 day, 45 at night, the industrial to residential, sound radiated from an industrial zone property to residential, you add 6 dB. So the limit is 61 dB day, 51 dB at night. Again, that's back to that expectation. And I think that is a valid concern. I'm not so sure it's valid if it's new industry. If you move into a home and then all of a sudden, right across the street, there's a new plant going up, to me, that's different. And so that might be a consideration, is to give that allowance, kind of grandfather that in, so to speak, if it's an existing industry. But if it's a new industry, it still would have to necessarily comply with the 55 day, 45 at night. One of the things that Illinois did too, and they were challenged on this legally back in the 1980s. You can't just go out to a plant or something like that, wave a sound level meter, and gosh, if you're over 55 dB, write up a citation. They were challenged on that principle in the 1980s, and it really forced the state EPA to change their measurement procedure to allow for a time averaging. And I can tell you time averaging is a valid concern. I grew up in Park Ridge, as I said, and every time a jet flew over, it created a great annoyance, but it was temporary. And if I ask myself, if a plane only flew out of O'Hara once every hour, would that be as annoying as the existing environment where it's flying out every 3 minutes? The noise level of the plane didn't change. What happened is you had many more frequent flights flying out. So noise is a dose concept. It's a concept of there has to be it's a product between both intensity and time. And the way the state addressed that is to do a 1 hour evaluation. Now that doesn't, they call it a 1 hour reference. It doesn't necessarily mean that a deputy or somebody has to be out on a property line for a full hour. All they need to do is do a short term, 1 minute, 2 minute, maybe 3 minute sample of the noise, and then ask themselves, does this go on all hour? Because if it is, then that's the noise level. If it's only half an hour, then there's an adjustment that can be made. So that's critical in assessing noise, is doing some form of time averaging. And the other thing is the state of Illinois says that the measurement could be anywhere inside the property line, wouldn't have to be at the property line. In fact, being at the property line might not necessarily be the best place to take a measurement. So Illinois has no stipulation as to it being a property line measurement. It could be anywhere within the property line. So what about this 1 hour average? We call it in acoustics the LEQ. It's called the equivalent level. And you might say, well, didn't you tell me it was a time average? Well, it is, but the reason that we're calling it equivalent level, because we don't want people to confuse it with an arithmetic average, because it's not. The LEQ really is a logarithmic time average. And the reason that it was adopted was because it has best correlation with human annoyance to noise. Here's an example of the difference. Say you go out and you measure a noise for 30 minutes and it's 60 dB, and then it's off. So you get 0 dB for 30 minutes. The LEQ of that time period would be 57 dB, not 30. Okay, so in a way, what the LEQ does for us is it's essentially a level weighted average where the higher intensity sounds are weighted more than the lower intensity sounds. And that correlates very well with research after research of people complaining about annoyance due to noise. The other thing is that it's easy now to measure with modern sound level meters. I remember trying to calculate LEQs in the 1970s. It was quite a process. It would take me almost all day at the engineering firm. I worked downtown at an engineering firm for 8 years. Today, you can do it with an iPhone. Real time. We have that much computing power. There's more computing power in your iPhone now than NASA had to land Neil Armstrong on the moon. And that was a stat given to me 10 years ago when my son graduated from Purdue. And all of a sudden, all the parents are going, wow, do I have a lot of power? So we'll talk about iPhones because this is something that could easily be used to kind of monitor a situation.
And Dr. Thunder, I hate to kind of stop you, but before I lose quorum, I'm going to have to ask you to speed up your presentation just a bit.
Okay. So this is the most objective measurement that you can make with assessing environmental noise. And the things that we need to do is we have to correct for background sound. If the sound is clearly audible, probably no corrections necessary, but even the state requires this, that you can't control ambient sound. If you make a sound measurement, it includes the sound source and ambient. So this is a quick graph or a table that shows you how to correct for that. An example, if I make a measurement of the ATV track noise at 62, but when they're not operating, it drops to 57, then I use this table here to correct it. And now I know 62 minus 2 means that the sound radiated from the track, nothing else, is 60 dB. And that's what you would look at. You'd also correct for partial operations if it was less than an hour. If the ATV track you knew only operated for 50 minutes in an hour, then you would take your measurement and you'd use this table and correct for it. You see, it's not a great correction. It's just 1 dB, but it's the correct thing to do. And finally, I wanted to, and this is an important point of this presentation, is the adjustment for character. This is based on an ANSI standards that says that just making a decibel measurement isn't enough to correlate with the annoyance due to noise. We recognize that noise with strong low frequency content, like from DJ subwoofers and live bands that provide a throbbing bass or deep rumble sound, you should add 5 dB to that. If you have tonal noise from substations, for example, something that emits a discrete humming sound, 5 dB. And here's an important point, because I've done a lot of pickleball studies recently. Pickleball noise, for example, is repetitive short bursts. That deserves a 5 dB correction. So if I measure 55 dB, I adjust it by 5 decibels. And here's something that's very important too for you, because I've heard discussions on with Kane County about shooting guns and so forth. ANSI says that deserves a 12 decibel correction. So if you go out there and you just make a measurement, you do this LEQ, then you add 12 decibels to it to account for adverse character of that type of sound. And I think I can end it right there, because the last few slides was really meant to show you more about how a simple worksheet could be used to be able to make this measurement and make all the corrections on one little worksheet. Any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Thunder? Mr. Williams?
I do. Dr. Thunder, thank you. Excellent presentation. I learned a lot. I think there's a lot I still need to learn, but so is it your recommendation that our ordinance incorporate an LEQ type measurement as part of our evaluation, whether a sound exceeds our ordinance levels?
Absolutely, because most noise varies. And if you read a sound level meter, you've seen this needle bouncing up and down. You take an eyeball average it, 2 or 3 of us would have a different answer. And what you want is objectivity. And the LEQ, and I demonstrate to this to my students all the time because I have them do it in a laboratory situation, how accurate the measurements are among different people and among different instruments if they use the LEQ. It's just a time averaging. And that smartphone app, I think we talked about it this week, you could download by NIOSH, the National Institutes of Occupational Safety and Health, your tax dollars at work. I encourage you to download that right now. If you have an iPhone, it won't work on an Android. It's free. All my students use it, and it will give you everything that you need, anything that a deputy would need to at least do a basic investigation as to find out what kind of basic decibels we're talking about.
So I downloaded that app, and during your presentation, my LEQ level was 72.9, just to give everybody a reference.
Okay, okay.
So the next
Over how
question-
long of a
It
period?
was like 4 minutes.
4 minutes? Yeah, plenty good, sure.
So we're talking about our sheriff's deputies buying sound decibel meters. Is that really necessary? I mean, most of them have smartphones. If is this app sufficient, or would you recommend we actually invest in decibel meters?
I would recommend the county have at least one actual meter. And the reason for that is because a real meter is qualified by the American National Standards Institute. If you look on the back of a meter, it'll tell you ANSI type 1, type 2. That'll tell you how well the instrument was made. The problem with the iPhone is that everybody has different iPhones. We all have different microphones. You know, there's too much different about it. But according to a study in the Acoustical Society Journal, there's several apps just based like they are that are good apps to have. So you don't want anybody just downloading any old app. You want to stick to the ones that work well. And if you have then an important case, one that's going to be litigated, one that there's a definite claim, then maybe rely on that sound level meter back at the office to take out there and adjudicate it that way. But a smartphone app will give you a good idea as to whether or not we're talking about a violation here or we're not.
Have you had an opportunity to look at our proposed ordinance? And if so, are there recommendations you would like to make to this body to incorporate in that ordinance?
Mostly about converting to a numerical standard and then having some basic measurement procedures implanted to make sure the measurements are done in a standardized methodology.
About how long would it take for you to make recommendations to this body on that ordinance?
How long in terms of
your turnaround time to look at it, to make some changes and suggested changes
Oh.
and to submit it back to us?
I would probably say a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Okay.
Anything
Madam
else from
Chair?
Dr. Thunder? Mr. Tuppy, and then I'll whoever was next there.
Thank you. Except from your comments about pickleball, which I take offense to, found your presentation. to
I
be
love
quite-
pickleball.
Quite interesting.
Just not 100 feet from your home.
I will agree with that too also. I have a challenge trying to put a measurement like this in place because every time somebody was to question it, every time a deputy was to go out and measure it, we'd end up having to explain it. And your explanation, which went on for some time period, which, you know, being a mathematician, I completely understand. I can just imagine the difficulty in trying to translate this into some legal terms that people would understand and be comfortable with. So I see a real challenge in trying to put something like this into any kind of ordinance. So, you know, although again, I completely understand it and see the logic of it, you know, for even myself to try to come and explain it to somebody whose property feels that they're being, you know, they're being imposed upon by noise and say, well, it's the LED doesn't measure up to it. That to me would just be a real challenge. So,
Well, we coach it maybe in technical terms like that, the LAQ, but call it a time average. Everybody would agree that if you've got varying noise, I think that's something that could be understandable. What's not understandable is if you reference the Illinois state regulations. I've seen a lot of municipalities that just kind of throw their hands up, go, we don't want to get involved in this. So we're just going to we're going to say the state of Illinois noise regulations are now ours. That is way way too scientific, way too complicated. And there's got to be some sort of balance, because otherwise you're talking about a psychological, you're talking about whether or not you feel it's a noise, or he feels it's a noise issue, or she feels it. There has to be some level of objectivity that goes into it.
Okay. I don't want to get too far into this because, like I said, we might lose quorum in about 5 minutes. Mr. Van Kerkhoff, can you come back up? I kind of want to understand some direction and recommendations. It doesn't look like we're at the point where this ordinance is ready to pass our committee.
Madam Chair.
One
Madam
second,
Chair.
Mr. Corner Russell.
Yes.
So Mr. Van Kerkhoff, what would be your recommendations right now for us?
Well, greatly appreciate Dr. Thunder joining us today, so you could hear what we heard. Our recommendation would be that we work with him as our consultant on this with our state attorney's office, and come back next month with a new revised ordinance that incorporates some of those concepts that he just mentioned, as well as a way to make sure we explain to the sheriff's department what would be involved in equipping and training and implementing it.
Okay, thank you. And I guess to try to save our time too, I might be interested in maybe just doing a special JPS meeting to discuss both this ordinance and amending chapter 15, because I think it's important for our committee to take a deep dive into both of them. And I don't want to keep pushing this on because we run out of time during our JPS committee. So with everybody else's indulgence, I'd like to just make sure that we bring both of these back. And I'm thinking we probably, sorry, Christine, have to do a special JPS meeting just to discuss both of these within the next 30 days. Yes, chapter 12 and 15. Thank you. Okay, so if we can hold everything else out for then, I don't think we need a motion because we didn't introduce it. So, okay, any other comments or questions from the committee regarding that idea? Okay.
Madam Chair, can I just have just a second?
Corner Russell?
Yes, I promise it's not long. Obviously, I'm not concerned about the noise because my clients aren't very loud. But the point I'd like to make is that as a police officer, we had to have our radar units calibrated every year. Is that something that could possibly be a concern with these decibel meters? Would they need to be calibrated, and would that cause a possible litigation issue?
I'll see if maybe Dr. Thunder has an opinion on that. If not, we're going to have to research that with Sheriff Hain.
That's true. If you're bringing it to that level of an official complaint or litigation, then you've got to work off a calibrated sound level meter, which is why I recommended the county have at least one. They're $1,500 plus $800 for a calibrator. And you would do that on an annual basis. Actually, you would do that. You'd buy a calibrator and you would calibrate it every time you make a measurement to show that the meter you're measuring is accurate and precise.
Thank you, Dr. Thunder. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to our agenda. May I have a motion and a second to place written reports on file.
Williams moves.
Mr. Williams moves.
Roth second.
Mr. Roth seconds. May I please have roll call? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, reports are placed on file. We have no need for executive session. May I have a motion and second
Williams
to
moves
adjourn?
to adjourn.
And Roth seconds.
Mr. Williams moves, Mr. Roth seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay,